Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Emmanuel, and we've actually been working on an amazing application called Yummy, and this is a food ordering application, right? And we've actually finished up with the UI, and we just in the last couple of videos implemented a networking service that allows us to be able to make requests to the backend. So what we're going to be doing subsequently is to connect our UI with the backend using our network service. So if you've not been following along with this particular project, I highly recommend that you go ahead and start from the beginning, and I promise you there's a lot of things to be learned. Also, if this is not your first time watching any of my videos and you haven't subscribed already, then maybe just consider clicking the subscribe button, turn on post notification, because there's a lot more content coming your way. And let's actually get to today's video. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to head over to our networking folder and open up the route, because we want to connect to the backend. We need to specify the address, right? So the first endpoint that we're going to be implementing is to fetch all categories. And this endpoint is actually going to be used in the home page. So we're going to call this endpoint, and it's going to return the categories as well as the popular dishes and specials. All right, so now to implement this, we're going to say fetch all categories, and the path is slash dish hyphen categories. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do for those of you who are moving a little bit faster than I am is I'm going to leave a link. I'm going to leave all of the endpoints as well as the methods in the description, right? So you're going to see the different paths, and I'm also going to represent the page that those endpoints should be called in, right? So you can go ahead and implement this by yourself, and I'll be very impressed if you can get that working before I release my own video, right? So it's just a fun and good exercise for you to move faster than I am. Good. So now we've set up our route for fetch all categories. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to head over to our views and go to the home page, because that's where we're working on. And in our home page, when the view loads, what we want to do is we want to make a request to the backend to get us all of the categories. But now we can't do that yet because we need to implement the function. So let's go into our network service, and right here where we have our first request, we're just simply going to get rid of all of that, and instead we're going to implement a new function called fetch all categories. And this endpoint is going to have a completion at escaping, and this is going to be result that has two types. The first one is going to be all dishes, while the second is going to be error. And for now we don't have this, so don't worry about that. We're going to implement that in a bit. So result closes right here, then this is going to be void. Alright, so this is going to be our function. This function is going to allow us to make a request to get all the categories, and then we're going to use the completion to return all the dishes or the error, as the case may be. Great, so now let's go ahead and implement all dishes. So we're just going to head over to our models folder. So models over here, and we're going to create a new Swift file called AllDishes, like this. Create. Now this is going to be a struct called AllDishes, and remember that it has to be decodable, right? So this has to be decodable, okay? Now in order for us to know what the structure is for all dishes, we're gonna need to know like a sample, either a sample response from the backend, or just we need to have an idea of what kind of data we should be receiving. So one way we can do it is to check the documentation, or we can just leave this empty, make a request, and then log the JSON response, just the way we did in the last video. So we can log the JSON response and then structure our all dishes struct to follow that particular format. All right, but I already know what the structure is, and I'm going to leave the structures, the different response structures, in the description as well. So for all dishes, the first thing we have here is categories, and this is going to be of type dishCategory. All right, and I always like to make this optional just in case for whatever reason this is not available. It doesn't crash or it doesn't fail to decode, but it just like returns empty, right? So I always like to make this optional. So the next one we have is populars, and this is going to be an array of dish. Same thing. Finally, we have specials, which is an array of dish as well. So this is the structure of our response for our AllDishes request. If that makes sense. Now, if we look over here, we see that we have an error. It says this does not conform to Decodable. So what we need to do is go over to dishCategory and make sure that this guy conforms to Decodable as well. And then we're going to need to also confirm dish. Okay, so dish already conforms to Decodable. So now the errors should be gone if we go ahead and build this. Sweet. So now we have this, and we can go back to our network service right here, and everything looks good. So now we have access to a function called request, which we want to use to connect or make the actual request to the backend. So what we're going to do is we're going to say request, and we don't need any parameters. We're not going to be passing any parameters, so I'm just going to use the first one. And for the routes, we already have access to fetch all categories like this. For the method, I know that it's a get request, so the completion is going to be our completion just like that. And this is all, and this is why I was very excited about this network service. So we won't always have to do the URL sessions, data task, and all those things. We just use this simple function and we make different kinds of network calls, and it gives us a response and it decodes, right? Makes sense. So now we have this. We can quickly go over to our home view controller, and we can now use our network service. So just say network service dot shared. We want the shared instance. This is not shared. What did I call it? Let's quickly confirm that. Oh yeah, that's shared. I don't know why I'm not receiving. Let me build this real quick. Ooh, I wrote net service. That's why. So network service dot shared, beautiful, dot fetch all. So you can see that we have that over here. So when I click on this, we can see that the result is going to have the dishes as well as the error. So I'm just going to call this result, and in order to make sure that we have no form of like retain cycle or anything, I'm going to create a weak self reference, so a weak reference to self. Then right in here, I'm going to create a switch that switches our results. So this is going to have two cases. The first one is success, which returns all the dishes. So I'm just going to say all dishes like this. And then we're also going to have a failure that has error. And for now, I'm just going to print the error is error.localize description. And for this one, I'm just going to say it was successful. It was successful. All right. So now let's go ahead and run this application. Okay, so this is running. Hopefully it has made the request. So let's see if we receive a response. And this is actually something that we're going to need to address. So, oh, right, it was successful, but there wasn't any indication that a request was triggered. So what we want to do in reality is we want to maybe show a loader or something so that the user knows that it isn't just frozen or not doing anything. So what we're going to do is we're going to head over to our pod file right here, and we're going to implement one more pod called ProgressHUD. Great. So now that we have that, we're just you're gonna need to navigate to your project directory. So this Yummy project, and just make sure that you have the pod file over there. So now you can just go ahead and type in pod install, and this should install the dependency. But if for whatever reason you are experiencing this particular error, I'm not sure why this is happening, but if yours worked very well, then you're okay. But if you got this same type of error, I actually made some research and I found that this is sort of like a workaround to fix that. So I'm going to leave this as well in the link. So just copy that, and we're going to replace this with this. So this is simply pointing to a different commit. We're trying to download the dependency from a different commit message. All right. So now I'm going to save that and run pod install one more time. And hopefully this fixes it, let's see. So this has installed ProgressHUD 2.51. Great, so now we have ProgressHUD installed. The next thing we're going to do is head back into our home view controller, and right here, just before we make our network call, what we want to do is first of all start our ProgressHUD, and we need to import that right at the top. So import ProgressHUD. Now go back down here and say ProgressHUD.show, and this is going to show us a loader. Then right here, if there's an error after the request comes back, what we want to do is show an error message. So show error, and this is going to take in a string like this. Great, and we can actually just get rid of this. Then if there's a success message, if the request was successful, we want to say ProgressHUD.dismiss, and then we want to update our data. Now, the first thing I want us to do over here is get rid of all of the mock data that we have there. Go to space. This one as well. Space. And we're getting rid of this because we're fetching the data from the backend, right? So now, at this point, what we want to do is say self dot, and we have 3 data, so categories. This is going to be equal to all dishes dot categories, just like that, and it's optional, so we're just going to have to default to an empty array in case there's no data in the backend, in case it returns nil. Then we're going to have self dot populars is going to be all dishes dot populars, like that, same thing. And finally we're going to have self dot specials equals all dishes dot specials, just like that. All right, so now updating this data here, or updating the variable, isn't enough to update our UI. So what we're going to need to do is to reload our various collection view cells. So we're going to say self.collection view, or what is it called here? So category collection view dot reload data, and the next one is going to be popular collection view dot reload data, and finally we have our specials collection view dot reload data. Great. So now let's go ahead and run this, and hopefully we should see our loader. We should also see data fetched from the backend. Ooh, okay, so now we can see our loader over there, and oh my, it felt so good. It felt so good. So we can see that the data actually came in, and the popular dishes it displays correctly, and also we have our specials like this being displayed correctly as well. But there are cases where things are just not correct. For example, we can see that here we don't have, even though here it shows the full details, because we're passing in the exact dish into the detail page. So this is good. It shows that we have the calories over here and we have the name over here, but right here we can't see it. So there's an issue with the image pushing them away, or something odd is happening over here. We're going to fix that. Also over here we can see that we can see the icons. We can see the icons for the dishes. We can't see this one. and we can't see any of the texts. So it's time for us to do some level of debugging to see why this is happening. So the first thing we want to do is to figure out why this data is not displaying. So let's get to the cell and just click right here, and we have that in custom views, we have it in collection view cells, category collection. Great, so this is where we are. So what I want to do is I want to just simply log some things here, and I'm gonna say this is debug like this, and I'm gonna log the category name, and then I'm going to log the image URL. And actually I know that it is, well, I'm pretty sure it is empty, but well, it doesn't hurt to verify. But the fact that we can't see it means that it's either empty or there's a UI issue happening over there, just like in the second case that we're having. So it has come back, and we can see that we have the images for some of them, but it was returning nil right here. So it means that it wasn't able to decode the data that came for the category name, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to head over to our network service, and we want to see what the response is. So I'm just going to let go of this for now, just so that we can see what kind of data came in and why it wasn't able to decode that data into a string. Okay, so here I'm just going to say the response is, oh well, just let's use defined. All right, so category, and we have title as snacks, but here we don't have snacks being displayed. So here we have it as title. Let's go confirm that it is, of course, title. So I'm going to go over to category, dish category, that's it. So here we have it as name. So this is why it didn't work. We call this name, but the backend is calling it title. So one thing we can do is, of course, change this to title, but it's going to mean that in different parts of our code, let me just show you if I build, in different parts of our code, we're going to need to update the value from title, from name to title. But another thing we can do over here is to create something called coding key. So here I'm going to create an enum and call coding keys. And this coding keys is going to be of type string and coding key like this. Then over here, what we're going to need to do is specify the different keys. Let's see what they're saying over here. Yeah, it doesn't conform because this needs to implement all of these IDs, all of these keys or cases. So we're going to say let case ID, and we don't want to change that, so I'm just going to leave it like that. Name, and since we want to change name, I'm going to say this should be title. And actually, change is not the right word, but what we're doing over here is we're saying, let me just add image. We're saying that this struct has different keys. It's a decodable struct, and it has different keys, ID, name, image, and these are the keys that we're expecting from the backend. Now, when we do this, we're saying that the enum name is this, or the key name in our project is ID, but from the backend, what we will be getting maybe is going to be this. So let's say, for example, we want our code, our project to know this as ID, but our backend is sending it as underscore ID. So we want our code to know this particular key or attribute as ID, but the backend is sending underscore ID. So this allows us to be able to say, look, the backend is going to send this, but I want you to convert this or to decode the value of this into my property called this. All right, I hope that makes sense. So that's what we're simply doing for the title like this. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and hopefully now we should be able to see the names of the different categories. All right, so that worked pretty well. We can see the names of the different categories, but we can't see an image for Nigerian dish. And I'm not sure why, so let's actually just go ahead and confirm. So we have the response like this is, so I'm just going to search for Nigerian dish is, okay, so we have image, and the image key seems correct. I'm going to copy this, and like this, let's just confirm that the image actually exists in our browser. So the image seems to be broken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to update this, and don't worry, by the time you're watching this, you're not going to experience this issue because I would have changed the image. So, but well, this is, I'm happy this happened, so you can sort of see how debugging happens, or how we can debug certain wrong issues in our code. So this actually got the image, but it didn't, this image doesn't exist online, or it is actually broken. So that's why it's not displaying anything right in this spot. So let's try something else. You can see vegetarian is showing. So I'm just going to copy this just so you understand what I'm saying. So I'm going to open up my browser again and paste this over there. And when I run this, you can see that it actually returned the image of the placeholder that's displayed over here, right? So I'm going to fix this before you actually get to watch the video, so all of these will not be a problem for you. And remember, since you are connected to a backend, because your data is not being displayed locally, just head back to the home view controller, because the data isn't being hard-coded anywhere, you would need to change your code. So the moment I change the URL from the server, when you run your application, you're gonna see something display here, just like that. Sounds good, right? Now this video is actually taking longer than I expected. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break this down, and in the next video we're gonna fix this issue right here, where our title is not showing but is actually visible here. And just to show you that everything works, you can see that here there's a meal called kasha. We click on that, you can see that it shows the correct one, the calories, a little description about that particular food. You can go ahead and see pizza right here. You can see the pizza. So you see everything is taking good shape. We'll click on this one. I think this is from India if I'm not mistaken. And it's actually showing the meal pretty nice. And I've actually seen something else right here. You can see that the data isn't complete. So in our next video, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be fixing these issues where the text isn't being displayed properly. We're going to be fixing that, and we're also going to be fixing this one where the title is not displayed. Great, so we're going to call this a day, and see you guys in the next video. If you have any questions, feel free to leave in the comment section. If you enjoyed the video, please just go ahead and click the like button, and see you guys next time.